Greetings, YouTubes. Now, the concept of the militia has always been in the American zeitgeist because of its connection to the Second Amendment. The idea being that that as part of a well-regulated militia, firearms need to be in the possession of the citizens of our nation. Um, the thing that seems to be missed, it's fallen through the cracks, if you will, is that a militia as per the definition used by the founding fathers in our actual laying out of our the amendments, is that a militia is part of the U.S. government. The militia exists as an entity of the government. Citizen soldiers ready to be called up by their government in defense of the nation. That's what the militias are. Uh, there are places in the world today that still have that concept, that the citizens are considered their military force, that they can be called up at any time. Many places have mandatory service, whether you're a man or a woman. Everybody has to serve in the military. They all have to have training. Some places actually require people to actually keep firearms in their own homes, specifically for the purposes of defending their nation against invasion. Uh, but militia has also a different meaning in American context. And militias in the general overall contemporary meaning are almost exclusively anti-government military forces. They are, plain and simple, domestic terrorists. At best, they are weapon mad freebooters who are eagerly awaiting the opportunity to start going to war with someone. I'm assuming they're fellow citizens, the ones that they know are sheeple, the ones that aren't heavily armed and living in bunkers and compounds and hanging out with their fellow white nationalists. Um, you'd be surprised how many people out there that aren't members of a militia could still very well defend themselves from these yahoos who think that they're just going to roll over other people. Um, there's a film that was recently released called Civil War, which deals with a future civil war that takes place in the United States. I have absolutely no desire to see it. Apparently, the director and the writer and such took a very fair and balanced view of it, and there aren't any clear good guys or bad guys, which is absolute and utter bullshit. Anyone that starts a civil war is the bad guy in America. We have done that. We figured it out. We know who the good guys are, the bad guys. And right now, the current government are not the bad guys. In fact, the current bad guys in America are the white nationalists, who are often members of militias. See how I wrap that right back up again? Um, so I want us to stop calling them militias. Because remember, a militia, in the context of the Second Amendment, is an extension of the United States government. And these white nationalists, because they are almost white, always exclusively white nationalists, regardless of what they say, if you scrape really, really carefully, it is not hard to find the white nationalism's, you know, ideology hiding underneath their vile surface. Okay? We need to stop calling them militia and calling them what they are, domestic terrorists. We need to declare all white nationalists domestic terrorists in America. Okay? If you are a member of the Klan, if you're a member of the Aryan Brotherhood, if you're a three percenter, or whatever wonderful names they've come up with, the Proud Boys, they're all white nationalists. They all need to be considered domestic terrorists. I personally would extend that to any person in America that is a registered Republican voter because they have allied themselves with the people who are actually domestic terrorists. So they are at minimum supporters in spirit, if not also fiscally, of domestic terrorists. So yes, we should call them what they are. Stop calling them militias. That's bullshit. They are not extensions in the United States government. They are domestic terrorists. And we should treat them as such, and they should be considered such by the law. We should be going after them. We should be arresting them. We should be charging them. And when they've been found guilty of domestic terrorism, because it probably wouldn't be difficult at all to prove that they are, in fact, domestic terrorists, because they are constantly plotting against local members of the government as well as people in the federal government. They've actually gone into plans to like kidnap people and murder them in their homes and things like that. And frequently, unfortunately, the people they kill first are going to be law enforcement, because law enforcement are the ones that have to have interface with these folks first and foremost. And they frequently decide that they'll take the war to the enemy and they'll go after the foot soldiers, which is the law enforcement, and to kill them first. Now, I have lots of problem with the law enforcement in America. I don't necessarily want to see them gunned down in the streets because they had to go talk to a bunch of white nationalists who are domestic terrorists and are being handled with kid gloves by the state and federal government because nobody wants to have the balls to step up and say, hey, those are domestic terrorists. So yes, let's start treating them as such. Because once we do that, and they've been found guilty, then they can't do things like own firearms. And in many places, they can't vote. Not to mention, they're going to be spending a lot of time in prison, which is where they belong, because they're dangerous. So yes, stop calling them domestic. Stop calling them militias and start calling them what they are, domestic terrorists.